Hi, how do you feel? Today I am going to be talking about what I think like Serana Volkihar from Skyrim Kit in Honkai Star Rail and Genshin Impact will be like, and as an afterthought, also how it should be in Fate Grand Order. Before I start, Serana Volkihar is a character from Skyrim. She's probably the only character in Skyrim that has any type of personality or anything remotely memorable whatsoever. And she's a vampire who was still underground for a really long time. Skyrim is about medieval fantasy, and she was still underground in order to stop her father from fulfilling a prophecy using a very powerful item called the Elder Scroll. However, even though she was still underground for so long, the protagonist saves her, and because he saved her, or they saved her because the protagonist, you choose her gender, so I'm gonna use they them pronouns. Because the protagonist saved her, and because she's a very resilient and strong person, she's able to overcome this and doesn't become a bad person. And therefore is kind and eventually stops her father. And even if you're evil, she's not really evil or does evil stuff. Anyways, in the game, she has the basic AI, but it is very strong and smart. She uses ice magic, sword, and brings enemies back from the dead. The fact that she was sealed with an Elder Scroll and she was in hibernation for so long didn't give her any powers. That's something that she said. I gave her power from the Elder Scrolls because I thought that was a fun headcanon. Let's go with her Honkai Star Rail kit. I propose that she is a 4-star Harmony, Ice Bleed, Action Advance with BPS, and a healer. This is a lot of words and a lot of crazy stuff that maybe wouldn't be possible for a 4-star, but let's pretend it is. Because power creep, you know. She will be Harmony because I will think she supports because of the way her person is, and the fact that I think even in Skyrim less than a sub DPS, she should have been a sort of support because she's a vampire. Even though she's a vampire girl, she's very kind and she has a relationship with the protagonist regardless of who the protagonist is, unless you specifically ignore that quest. I think it will be ironic being that she's a vampire that she healed, and it will fit that she's against her father and should have been against other vampires, but you can join them technically, and you just antagonize her father no matter what. And because she's very strong, I gave her the fabled and right now not there action advance for all party whenever she uses her ultimate. She will have normal ultimate cost, and she will use one skill point to deploy an area in which she gives a small amount of healing forever and general amping. After using her ultimate, she puts on another zone and gains 2 charge. Every turn she consumes charge and launches a follow-up. So long as she has any type of this charge, she will she will not consume his speed, but because of the way her energy will be planned out, she will need two turns to she will basically consume a third of an speed a turn. She heals very little permanently, a little bit like Lynx, and she actually advances the party by 10% every time her follow-up is launched. Yeah, that's about the Honkai Star Rail. Okay, now for Genshin Impact. For Genshin Impact, I thought of a more complex and dedicated character. So I think in Genshin Impact, she should be right now when about to enter Cisnaya, and the first reaction we got was Cryo plus Electro Superconduct, but it's a Superconduct that deals with DPS damage. Sort of not like all Superconduct, which reduces physical rest and therefore was to support physical damage. So I thought of a Superconduct support that was meant to support physical damage dealers like my poor girl Eula, who also has her specific flavors of gameplay in Skyrim. I think she basically should have things that reflect the fact that she brings enemies back from the deck temporarily, which is something you can do in Skyrim in general with a spell. And the fact she drains blood because she's a vampire, and her ice magic all combined into a cryo vision user that, of course, has headcanon Elder Scroll powers and supports physical damage. So her skill has a normal cooldown of 10 seconds and damages enemies with a small missile based on a spell that she uses in Skyrim that's made of ice and debuffs them so that every few seconds they get cryo and physical damage applied to them for a fixed amount of time within the cooldown, something reasonable that works with other characters. It also increases the damage of all allies, that is physical, by 30% for until the cooldown is over. And if this skill kills an enemy, they get turned into a husk, which deals 1% of Serana's attack to other enemies after performing a few regular attack animations from the dead enemy. This isn't really supposed to be balanced or like be strong or weak, and just like a cosmetic thing that reflects their Skyrim way of fighting. Only 2 husks can deal at the same time, and they only deal cryo damage. And only certain enemies can become husks, so like no ruin guards, and not trying to compile enemies. So like you can turn a whopper flower into a husk, but not pyro whopper flower specifically. Her ultimate makes her do a pose that she does when she's locked in with the other scroll. I also think that will be her ultimate in Honkai Star Rail. And that ultimate does that pose and summons a field of flowers, and applies the head cannon underscroll power, which basically buffs stuff, makes enemies slower because it's cryo, and makes them take 20 extra rest spend damage applied to them before receiving damage that is physical. Also Blood Drain. Okay, what is Blood Drain? I propose Blood Drain as a physical debuff that makes enemies slowly take damage, chip damage, sort of like getting poisoned or corrosion, which is an actual mechanic in Genshin. And additionally, every stack of Blood Drain reduces their physical resistance by 10%. The max stacks that she can give are 5, and they are independent from other characters. I imagine in this scenario that Rosaria also has Blood Drain, Shenhe, but more like for Shenhe it's called Blood Freeze, and for Eula it's called Wave Magical Drain or something, I don't know. Her normal attack will be a 3-attack sequence of a slash, a magic push forward with, and then a backdash. So like she slashes and does a magic push forward. She puts her right hand forward, and that does a small blast of cryo damage if you have a passive luck, but if not, she just does the animation and maybe slaps the enemies softly. And then she backdashes and shoots a blood drain small laser that does 1 blood drain stack. A blood drain also gets clear of the enemy after 30 seconds of being applied. And she has a regular sword user cryo attack. Oh yeah, she's a cryo sword user, and she doesn't have special reactions, but she has these cool mechanics. Finally, as an afterthought, I propose that she in Patron Order will be, if you even know about Patron Order, because this is far more niche, Honkai Star Rail and Genshin Impact. In Patron Order, I think she will be a quick caster, single target sub DPS that is meant to be used in multi-core teams. Okay, thanks a lot for listening to my dissertation. I appreciate you being here. Bye.